Happy Halloween, Pen to Pod listeners. This episode should be coming out the week of Halloween, one of my favorite holidays, and I wanted to give that time slot to my friend, Cody Wayne Morris. I had the absolute honor to interview Cody, and it was so much fun. I think you could tell that, I don't know, interviewing a friend is just a little bit different. I think we just were able to laugh and we even got emotional at one point together. And it was just so fun to sit down with Cody and poke his brain about his debut book, The Ghostwriters Club. I had the honor of meeting Cody through AuthorTube, and we have been chatting for over a year now. We got to meet each other in person this year through a little writing retreat we threw, and it was just so much fun. Having him as a writer friend has been so amazing. The Ghostwriters Club is Cody's mystery thriller debut, and it came out this year in April, but I wanted to make sure we spotlighted it in spooky season for this year. So if you want a good standalone thriller that has an ensemble cast and will keep you guessing, The Ghostwriters Club is it for you. Here's a little bit more. Logan begins his first year at Westview Writing Academy, determined to escape his mother's control and finish his late father's book series, Chronicles of a Killer. To complete the story, he needs real inspiration and hopes to find it within the mysterious Ghostwriters Club. This rogue writing group was disbanded on campus following the mysterious death of a member, Lexi Pruitt, who was found dead in her car the previous summer. When Logan hears that the ghostwriters may be returning after their year-long hiatus, he decides to join their ranks with the mission of uncovering what really happened the night Lexi died. Only when messages from an unknown user threaten Logan and his new friends, Logan will need to unravel Lexi's secrets to not only finish his story, but to survive. This episode was so much fun. We talk about everything from Cody finding his writing process to his self-publishing journey to what is new or on the horizon for Cody's writing career. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Cody Wayne Morris. Start with one of my favorite questions is about place, just because when I read, I feel like setting is so important. It feels like another character. And I just find it so fascinating that either where you're from, where your hometown was, or where you've lived the majority of your life, whether that's the same place or different places, I love to hear how you think place has affected your writing.
Well, I mean, I guess the biggest influence as far as place goes is being a queer author who was raised in very Baptist Southern home and environment, and it was very I didn't come out of the closet until I was like 25, 26. So I guess that would be something that I implement a lot into my stories is the how do I want to say it? It's like it's all like, and so a lot of the stories that I have written, and one of the things that I love to implement into my thrillers that I write is the main character feeling like they need to hide from something, even though sometimes nothing is wrong. They just have this constant innate anxiety inside of them, feeling that they need to hide or filter themselves or edit the way that they speak in order to fit into what society considers a certain norm, which is something that I dealt with a lot, growing up, trying to fit a mold, trying to, present one way, even though way deep down I was feeling a whole other way, and the constant need to filter and fear that when will someone find out my secret, and having that constant anxiety. I love to put that in my characters. Obviously they have different secrets than I do because my characters do some shady things, but it's that same kind of feeling of the constant anxiety, constant looking over your shoulder. That feeling, I feel like, is why I'm drawn to thrillers so much. And so, yeah, I'd say that is the biggest way that place influences not only what I write, but also what I read, because I relate to those kind of stories,
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Like, I like how you phrased it of the anxiety of like, when will someone find out my secret? Because that's so prevalent in Ghostwriters Club. So
Yes.
I love that we're already making those connections right off the bat. But before we go into Ghostwriters Club and all your new fun projects, I would like to just hear, how did we get from the beginning to like now, Cody, as a published author? What has your writing journey been like thus far?
Okay, so I feel like, do you want to go like back to like beginning, or just the beginning of
Yeah?
Ghostwriters Club?
Yeah, the beginning.
Okay, okay,
The
beginning.
dawn of Cody Wayne Morris.
When I was a young warthog.
Yes.
Okay, so I feel like my first interaction that I ever had with, the thought of publishing a book or writing a book was whenever I lived on this street. It was called Kirkendall. And I had a neighbor. She was our next door neighbor to the right, and her name was Miss Jeanette. And Miss Jeanette was this sweet, sweet old lady who, anytime she'd see us outside, she would like give us some candy. If she saw us selling some lemonade, she would come out and like buy some lemonade. She was very supportive, very sweet. And from time to time, her and my mom sort of kind of became friends. And so on days whenever we'd be home alone for a little while because my parents had to work, they would send us over to Miss Jeanette's house to just hang out. She would make dinner, and we would sit, watch TV. She loved watching game shows, so we would usually watch game shows. And one day she was like, okay, I'm going to sit y'all here because I have to go do some writing. And I was like, writing? Like, what are you writing? And she was like, oh, I write books and stuff. And little Cody was so dumbfounded to hear that, because at that point in my life, I just thought books existed. I just thought they just appeared from some like magical portal. Turns out people actually write them, which these days you never really know, but that's a whole other topic.
Whole other topic.
So I feel like that was my first moment where I was like, oh, that's something that I could do if I wanted to. Because she was living a fully comfortable life and she was just writing books and telling stories. And I was like, I want to do that. So I started writing little short stories. One of my favorite ones that I've talked about on the channel before is Mikey the Magnificent Monster. It's about a young boy who buys a magical comic book. The monster comes out of the comic book and escapes. He has to go on this journey to try and catch the monster, get him back in the comic book. But he doesn't really have a lot of friends. And over the course of this adventure, he becomes friends with this monster. And, he realizes that he's not a monster. He's not these things that he thinks about, like he's not what's the word? There's more to him, more to this monster than meets the eye. And in his own little way, he always felt like that monster. Like no one ever truly understood him, never took the time to understand him. And so it's kind of like that kind of story. That was the first time where I really started to input my own personal experiences and deal with my own personal experiences through writing, because I was a kid who moved literally to a new school every year, which if you know anything about project terms and conditions, you can probably think that that's something that was inspired by that, but because it is. But literally, I was in a new school every single year because my mom worked in pharmaceuticals. And with that came a lot of travel, a lot of moving. And so that little part of my life kind of is what inspired terms and conditions. But yeah, and then I'd say I was writing on and off through college. And then once COVID hit, I was like, wait, this is the perfect time. I have literally nothing to do because I was a teacher. So we went on spring break and just never came back to school. And so I still was like, okay, I'm going to seriously try to do this again. So I did, failed because I was trying to just pants the whole thing. There was no outline, there was no plotting involved. And my goal to myself was like, you're going to be a published author by the time you turn 30. That was a promise that I had always like made to myself. It was this arbitrary number that I had made up for some reason. And 28 came, the year 28, and I was like, ooh, we getting real close to that 30. We're getting real close to that 30 years of age. And I don't know, something just like, it's like a switch flipped. And I was like, I went to Clark, who was my current husband. And it was like a current husband. It's like that guy on TikTok.
Cody, that was the funniest thing I've heard all day.
My only husband.
I was about to say something, but I didn't want to ruin the moment.
No, it's okay. I was like, well,
well, my current husband.
Yeah, but anyway, yeah, so I went to my current husband and I was like, hey, this is something that I seriously want to try to do. And I, like it's going to take some time out of our personal time to sit and dedicate and showing up every single day to do this thing. And then I was like, and I'm also going to do YouTube on top of it as an accountability system. Because if there's people there that are wanting updates or wanting to know more about the story, if I haven't done any work on it, then there's nothing to share. So it was almost like this symbiotic relationship of the channel was giving me accountability and I was giving, more of the story. And so it was kind of like this cycle. And that, honestly, the decision to start my YouTube channel is what led to me eventually being able to publish this book. And so From baby Cody meeting his neighbor up into a 30-year-old posting into the void of the internet. That's how we got here.
I love that your neighbor like modeled the career for you. And that's what was like, oh, people do this. I do feel like that's a common thing that
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people who fall into writing loved reading, loved storytelling in some sense, but like had no idea it could be a career, which
Mm-hmm.
is so fascinating. So it's fun. Like, when was the moment you realized this is something you could do? But I know that alongside storytelling, you're also really big into theater. How do you feel like your
Yes.
theater background helps you be a better writer?
I think that the thing that I do well with writing is character development. And I think that that
Mm,
is because of all of my theater experience. Because, obviously, two very different beasts. Writing, you're mostly solitary sitting at a desk. Live theater, you are up on stage,
mhm.
dancing, singing, literally walking in the shoes of the character that you are portraying. And I feel like all of that time spent doing theater, one, prepared me for artistic rejection, because in writing it happens all the time. And so, theater, I'd go to many, many auditions. About 80 to 90% were no's, but all you need is a couple yeses and you're booked for the year.
Yeah.
And so, one, it prepared me for the rejection that comes with the writing world. And two, it just helped me to literally learn how to walk in the shoes of someone who I have never met, who I never will meet, and empathizing with them and reaching this emotional level with them as I discover more about them and their background and their life. Taking all of those things and literally embodying it, personifying it on stage, it's, one, not only fun, but two, it's a great way to just learn empathy for
Yeah.
people in general and other characters.
Yeah, and I mean, you already talked about it with your first story, and then we'll get into it with Ghostwriters Club. But it seems like the writing experience for you is very like introspective. It's cathartic, so it makes sense that that is also getting pulled from your theater background of learning how to walk in the shoes of characters, and then taking pieces of your own life and pieces from lives of these made up characters that feel so real on the page. Is that how the inspiration of Ghostwriters Club started? Like, did it start off as like a self reflective, introspective piece, or did it just naturally become that once the idea kind of fully formed?
So I think it started off wanting to be introspective, but the first drafts were very bare bones, not quite there. The actual full like introspective part of it actually came to me in the later drafts,
Mm,
because I knew that when I first started out, I knew that one big theme that I wanted to talk about was the theme of legacy and the weight that comes with each generation having to live up to the successes and the, what's the word, like when it leaps forward in technology and society, they have
hmm.
to they feel like they almost have to match that or like one up it.
Okay.
And so dealing with that weight of living up to a legacy that you didn't ask for. And what does that look like? How many different ways can that look? And what length or what lengths is a character willing to go in order to protect what their family has built over generations?
Yeah.
And each of them struggle with that in their own right and for very different reasons. And yeah, I think that was kind of hit at the end with, because you've read the book, so you know the
Hmm.
epilogue with the bonus character that we get to have a POV from. That whole scene and what it meant, I felt it came to me at such a late stage, but it really
Okay.
tied up everything that I wanted to say in a bow, because of her looking at the bookshelf and all the stories and knowing that this specific person will never be on that shelf because of the
Yeah.
protecting and the secrets that they've kept
Hmm.
and that burden that they bear.
I know it's like I really want to talk specifics, but I don't want to spoil it
Yeah.
because I want people to go read your book. And I
Mm-hmm.
feel like it obviously hasn't been out long enough where we can just like gab
Yeah.
about all the intricacies. But I, before we dive too deep into Ghost Riders Club, because I have a lot of questions,
Okay.
I would love to know your process. I just think I mean, it's a very generic question to ask on a writing podcast, but I feel like the process is the art in our art form, and
Mm-hmm.
everyone approaches everything so differently. And I would love to know like what your process. It sounds like you were a pantser first and then that changed. So I'd love to know
100%.
like how has your process evolved over the last few years?
Yeah, so but short, long, whoa, I just had a stroke. Let me
Yep.
try that again. Oh, Lord. To make a long story short, is what I was trying to say. To make a long story short, I started off in those early years, 100% pantser. I was like,
Hmm.
whenever you plot a story, it takes the creativity out of it because you don't get to figure out what happens as you go, blah, blah, blah. And then I would wonder why I kept writing myself into a wall that would not go any
Mm.
further. And I was like, okay, maybe I should take Taylor Swift's advice. Maybe I'm the problem. It's me. And so let me try plotting just to see what happens. Now, plotting for me is literally me telling myself the story in bullet point list. There's not
Hmm.
necessarily usually a chapter number associated. There's not a scene associated. I literally almost in my brain, I'm going through the story as if it were like a movie or a TV show that I'm watching an episode of. And so I'll put a bullet point of like, okay, what's happening in episode 1? And that may end up making one chapter at the end, or it could end up being 3 chapters that come from that. And so that's kind of how I outline is I tell myself the story. I know the events that are happening, how we get from point A to point B. But the thing that I do not plot, and it's not because I don't want to or because of whatever, but I just find that I don't really plot my characters' emotional arcs. I let those be the
Mm.
thing that I discover in the first draft. So I know the events and where I want my characters to start and end, but how they emotionally ebb and flow to eventually get to where I want them, I let it sort of happen naturally as I'm drafting
Yeah.
because I feel like, when you're in the moment, you may think your character would act one way, but then you're in the moment, you have been, with this character for act 1 and act 2, you get to act 3, they would never make the choice that you outlined. And so
Yeah.
you have to kind of like almost like give and take with them and let yourself be flexible with your outline. Your outline is not law. It is not, the end all be all. And you're the author. You're allowed to change the outline because you wrote it. So, that's kind of how I do it. I know the order of events. I know a rough guesstimate of start and end. And then
Hmm.
everything else just kind of comes to me as I go.
I find that fascinating because I know you said you start off as a pantser, but like how I know you as a writer now is like you write like it feels like 50-page documents of like
Yeah,
outlines.
I
So
do.
I didn't realize that it's like a bullet pointed list that you don't have chapters for. I
Mm-hmm.
am shocked. Okay, so you said you think of it more like episodes, which I kind of like
Mm-hmm.
because I feel like when I'm outlining, I do the same. Like I'm a big TV watcher. So I feel
Mm-hmm.
like I have to like think of the arc of each episode and what's going to keep you going. So
Yes.
love that we kind of do a similar thing. But how in the heck do you then go through like 20 pages of bullet points and figure out what's in each chapter? Do you just start writing the chapter and then like wherever a natural end happens? Or do you
Mm-hmm.
like piece those together first?
Yeah, usually I just kind of start at the top of the outline and I work my way through and then, within, I try not to think too much about word count in a chapter or whatever because at the end of the day, if you're accomplishing what needs to be accomplished, the word count doesn't matter. It's just going to come down to
Yeah.
personal preference on if someone likes a longer chapter, a shorter chapter, something in between. Usually I write until I feel a natural break. And to me, a natural break in my mind is the moment where like something happens and then the screen goes dark and we're on a commercial. Like
Mm-hmm.
that to me is a natural break. I don't think of the full episode as one chapter. I think of it in chunks of like, okay, each commercial break is a chapter break in my
Yeah.
mind.
Yeah, that
So
makes a lot of sense.
yeah, that's how I think about it. And
I'm like, is Cody changing my whole writing process right now?
maybe.
That makes a lot of sense because I feel like, especially, I mean, not with streaming, but like with TV back in the day, our old selves,
Hmm.
when we used to watch TV as children,
Yeah.
that does make sense. Like, yeah, the commercials were strategically placed
Hmm.
once, a break
To keep
happened,
you
or they,
sitting there.
yeah, it would leave you on a cliffhanger, which is like, the end of a chapter. That's
Hmm.
genius, Cody. I
Yeah.
think you've
Thank
just
you.
changed my whole writing process.
See,
Truly.
and I think that that's the beautiful thing about writing is that all of our
Mm,
processes are so different. And for me, I don't ever I take the craft of writing very seriously, but my process, I just do what works for me. Like it doesn't,
yeah.
like whatever your process is that works for you, it doesn't have to be written in a textbook somewhere or in a self help book for it to be a valid way for you to work and for you to write. You can just do what works for you. And maybe, like this, through talking about it, you can find someone else who thinks similarly and it works for them. That's what it's all about. It's
And I
just
know we think
sharing and talking.
similarly. Our brains
Yes, we
are
do. We have
us little
equal
ADHD buddies.
ADHD, brain rot. We live, we're out here.
So that's why I'm like, wait a second. This makes total sense to me.
Yeah,
Okay.
right?
I love that. And I like that you don't plot out the emotional arc. I feel like I'm also similar in like characters come to me, but I
Mm-hmm.
explore them through writing, which I think does match what you're saying with like a theater background. Like a lot of times in theater, at least, the character might be written fully, but you explore how you embody the character through all of the practices and like,
Mm-hmm.
all of that, just getting to work through your character. But do you, though, plan all of your characters out in the outlining phase? I'm thinking now of like your future projects that you're working on, not pantsing. Or do you still feel like characters come out of nowhere? Like you're writing and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, a new character has appeared.
So for side characters, yes. But usually for me, before I start a story, I know who my list of main characters are. And usually, at least up until this point, that has not changed. Like when I've started a book, I might have found a new side character. Because one thing about me, I love a quirky side character. So
Mm-hmm.
I usually, those kind of characters usually pop up along the way. But main characters, for me at least, that cast is locked down. There's usually not an
Yeah.
addition or a deletion unless, like, for example, with the fantasy series that I'm planning on starting, obviously there will be new main characters introduced through each book. But in like that specific book, does that make sense? Or am I just
Yeah. No,
okay?
that does make sense. And I asked too because so with the Ghostwriters Club, there's a huge cast
Yeah.
because I mean, it's a whodunit. We're
Mm-hmm.
introduced to so many people and they all really do feel like full and well-rounded, and I agree. You're amazing at character development. So, if you're pantsing this, did you have that cast already in mind? Or at least for Ghostwriters Club, where you like, oh no, now this person's also part of the club and we're going to make this secret for them? Or did you like add people in during rewrites? It's just so many people to keep track of.
Yeah, it is. In the Ghostwriters Club, the main cast of the actual ghostwriters were a part of the book from day one. It was
Love
always
that.
these same characters. They've taken on new names as they have,
Mhm.
been written and rewritten, but it's essentially the same character. And each of them, I feel they're all so different, and I feel like that's what I love. But I feel like there's also a little piece of me in all of them, because like I feel like Anna is like my Aries energy. That's kind of like, if you catch me on a bad day, I might give you a look that could like draw blood. And
Mhm.
then like Jackson, he just, I love them all. I love all of my
Yeah.
characters. And they were with me from the beginning, but I learned so much more about them because I mean, going through all of this. And weird thing about me is when I start a book, I already know how it ends. That's the first thing that I know when a book idea comes to me is the ending. And so with that, I was like, okay, for this ending that I have in mind, what pieces do I need for this dynamic to work and for all of these situations to line up to propel all of these very different characters towards this same destination at the end?
Yeah.
And that was just like a fun puzzle to put together, and all the pieces were there. They weren't always where they once were, but all of the pieces that I had from the original are in the now published book somewhere, just disguised with new things and descriptions and fun things like that.
Yeah, so okay, so you always know the end, which is great. I feel like that is important when we're writing towards something.
Mm-hmm.
Was the prologue always there then? Or did you add that in as well at a later draft? Because the prologue, teases what's to come for Logan. So did you
Mm-hmm.
always know you wanted to start with like a flash forward and then we go back to how he got there? Or was that added later?
I'm pretty sure. Hold on, I literally have my first draft right here.
Yes, yes. Pull out the first
So
draft.
let me see, and I'll tell you. Okay, let me see. Because yeah, the prologue was always there.
I love that.
Yeah, because I was like, I feel like it came later, but I didn't know if it came within a different first draft or because I tried many times to write this book, so I couldn't remember when it got added. But yeah, in this version of the first one, there is a prologue.
Look at the first draft.
I know.
Oh my gosh, I love that you have
Memories.
that printed out.
Oh yeah, keep it forever. And I have my third draft, the first time that I ever printed it as a book, and then obviously I have the final right here. Yeah.
Yeah. So did it take 3 drafts then, like 3 full drafts to get it to where it is now at Publishing State?
No, it. Let's see, because there were
I'm just thinking of that
three
video sound.
drafts. Yeah, no,
No.
3 drafts were just developmental edits,
Mm.
and so I did 3 of those. Did 2 line/copy edits, and then a final proofread. So there were 6 total drafts
Okay.
of the Ghostwriters Club from draft 1 to published book.
Okay. Yeah, so you took the what I like to call the Russian doll method of like developmental, and then you kind of work your
Mm-hmm.
way down into line and copy editing. Very cool. And how did you approach that as like a debut author? This is like the first big book you're working on. I feel like that's a really big hurdle I see for a lot of like newer writers who, we're like, okay, cool, we finish a draft. Then it's like, what in the actual heck am I supposed to do? So, how did you approach those like developmental edits the first time around?
So for me, I learned a very valuable lesson with this book. I've told this story before, but with the Ghostwriters Club, I was so new to the author tube world, to the writing space that, I had been writing, but I had never taken a book past a first draft. I had never attempted to revise anything. I had never attempted to, polish up something. And so I thought the first logical step would be to send this very, what's the word, messy first draft to some beta readers without doing any editing on it, because I was like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to edit this book. And there were some on there that were so sweet, so kind. They were like, oh, I love this, love that, love this, love that. There was one who was like, are you sure? Like, are you sure you want this shared?
No.
But like, he didn't actually say that.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
it was
yeah.
just
Okay,
like
okay.
it was a wake up call of like hey,
Mm,
perhaps maybe like, and we actually ended up talking afterwards, because one thing about me, I can handle harsh criticism if it's valid.
yeah.
And his criticism was so valid, and I learned such a valuable lesson. He was like, hey, just from one writer to another, usually you want to try to send like a draft 2 or 3 out to beta readers after you've already done some stuff on your own. And I was like, got it.
Got it.
Understood, because I didn't know what the process was, and I was obviously excited. I was new to this writer world, so I was like, someone read my book and tell me about it. And it was my first time ever having other writing friends, so the urge to just
Mm,
shove my book anywhere I could to be
yes.
like, give me feedback, was just so strong. But it's okay. I was excited. I was a newbie. I was learning, and we all start somewhere.
Yes.
But yeah, it was a great time. And I learned a lot through that process. And honestly, shout out to all the self pub authors on YouTube: Bethany Atazadeh, Mandy Lynn, Jenna Moresi. Those were the main channels that I used to learn anything and everything about
Yeah.
editing, cover design, marketing, ISBNs, all the things I learned from those wonderful women on this YouTube space. So shout out to all of them.
I love it. A little author tube shout out.
Because truly, that's where I learn most things, is from watching a YouTube tutorial.
Like everything. Yeah, pretty
Yeah.
much. And in terms of, learning a lot, so you you pantsed a mystery thriller, Cody,
Yeah.
which I find crazy. Because, first off, I just want to say mystery thriller, I think, is the hardest genre to write. I truly am always saying, like, hats off to mystery thriller writers, hats off to romance writers. I think those are the two hardest genres for very different reasons. Like
Mm-hmm.
romance, usually they get with the person at the end, so you have to
Mm-hmm.
like
Keep them interested
make me
long enough
forget that. Yeah, you have
to
to
see
like
how it's
make
going
me
to happen.
forget that I know the end. And then mystery thriller writing, completely opposite. You want me to like never guess the end
Mm-hmm.
until it happens, but then you still need me to be like the clues
Yes, like
were
it has to make
there.
sense. Yeah.
Yes. So I feel like they are so hard. So I applaud you because the Ghostwriters Club kept me guessing up until the very And I truly thought it was not the, no, wrong, completely wrong. So I'd love to know in terms of pantsing and then in terms of just in general, like editing anything, just creating this story, like how do you pace clues and put in red herrings and, build up all this tension without making the twist feel forced at the end?
So, one of my favorite things, so growing up, I was obsessed with people that would do like magic, like, right in front of you and do that kind of like sleight of hand kind of stuff. And
Oh my God.
I was
Same.
obsessed with, specifically, there was this magician who had the magic trick with like the three like red balls where he would like squish one in his hand and then make another one appear like over here in this hand. And just any kind of sleight of hand I have been just like obsessed with. And in a way, a thriller novel is like reading sleight of hand. I am giving you information. I'm making something happen that makes your attention go over here while I am secretly moving things around over here. And so it's literally like literary sleight of hand. And it's so fun. And it is one of those things where, like I said, I know the ending first. And so what I
Yeah.
do is I map out, okay, how do we get there? In every scene, I know not only what the characters in the scene are doing, but the characters that are not in the scene, what are they
Oh.
doing? Because they have to have an alibi or something. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if I am saying that this character was doing this thing and they weren't actually there, then I have to keep track of that,
Yeah.
because every character needs to have an alibi. Every character, whenever there's an accusation, needs to be like, no, I would never do that. But then the evidence over here is saying, yes, you could do that. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's just this fun little sleight of hand, this fun little game of tag, a little back and forth with the reader. And I just think that that's so fun. That's what it's all about for
Yeah.
me, is the reading the ending and being like, whoa, I did
Yeah.
not see that coming. But then you go back to the beginning and you're like,
Yes.
how did I not see it
It
coming?
was there the whole time. And honestly, I feel like there are so many, and I love reading thrillers and mysteries. There are a lot, whether it's in TV, movies, books, that I'm kind of like, I guessed
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I did not guess with Ghostwriters Club. So seriously, if you guys love a mystery thriller, you gotta get this book. And with like this whole cast and the Ghostwriters Club, they are also complex. How do I want to say this? How do their, without being too spoilery, how do their secrets that they all have, like, how did you go about making that relate to really who they are? Because I feel like every secret is so perfectly matched as well to like who they are as a person.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, what came first, secret of the person?
Honestly, they kind of came simultaneously. So what, literally, and I'm not kidding, this is what I did, was I was making character profiles. And
Mm,
then I made one for all of my characters, and I figured out as much as I could about their personality, their backgrounds, the things they've gone through, like if their medical history was relevant, because as we know, some of the characters' medical histories are relevant in the Ghostwriters Club.
yes.
And so knowing these things about them that were going to be relevant to the story. And then I was like, okay, what? I literally sat and was like going through like celebrity scandals. And I was like, what would be the worst thing that someone could like report about something that could uncover, ruin someone's life? And I was just going through a bunch of like old stories. And I was like, oh, yeah, that one's pretty bad. That's pretty bad. And I had my
Mm-hmm.
list of 5 narrowed down. And then I literally like played a game of match where I was like, which of these characters fits each of these horrible things happening? And I already knew Logan's, because his is
Mm-hmm.
the big,
The big.
he's got a lot going on.
He
And
does.
so I knew his secret from the very beginning. But the other ones I had to kind of like figure it out, match it up, because yeah, I had to match to the
Yep.
personality, the backgrounds, had to make it believable.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we are following a murder mystery of Lexi.
Mm-hmm.
How was writing that and like writing Lexi into scenes? Like dealing with a
I
character who's, like off page, but you still do such a good job of like bringing her to life and making her seem like such a real person to all these characters who we're meeting without Lexi in the room.
mm-hmm. I love that question because Lexi actually, even though we don't see a lot of her in the book, she became one of my favorite characters in that book. And in my mind, the way that I viewed like any of the flashback scenes with Lexi, which I know you're a Pretty Little Liars fan, any of the
Yes.
flashbacks where Allison would all of a sudden be back in these memories with these girls looking like
Mm.
younger and more, that's how I imagined all of the flashback scenes with Lexi. It was like Pretty Little Liars, that slightly blurry filter, like
Mm-hmm.
very the contrast and the vivid like colors
Yes.
that they had,
Yeah.
and that is kind of like how I wanted, because in those little clips, even though when Allison has disappeared in the show, spoiler alert, if you haven't watched Pretty Little Liars,
Yeah.
Allison disappears. But she's gone for so long, for so much of the
Mm-hmm.
actual like beginning story. But through these flashbacks, you learn so much about who she is, how she acts, how she treats people, her respect level for her superiors, all these things. And I wanted to sort of take that and emulate that with Lexi's character and sort of show you that she is this smart person who, just she cares a lot about the people that she loves,
Mm-hmm.
and she gives everything that she can. And I wanted to not only show that, but show some of her faults as well in
Yeah.
her, background scenes. And so I love Lexi.
Yeah.
R.I.P.
R.I.P. Lexi.
R.I.P.
But
Lexi.
you talked about the themes in this book and how writing it, you set it out to be introspective and you really worked on that and like the developmental edits. Logan is dealing with a lot. He is a
Mm-hmm.
complicated character. He's dealing with grief and, like you said, the weight of legacy. Is that is that what made you set it at a university? Like that's like a natural place to explore those themes?
Mm-hmm.
Or how, I guess, because, like, I don't know, I love university stories. I love a good exclusive club. And I feel like these are amazing settings to explore
Mm-hmm.
legacy, grief, anxiety, confusion about who you are, like all of these really raw and
Identity.
intense
Mm-hmm.
identity emotions that Logan goes through. Did the setting, like, obviously come first? And do you, like, how do you feel like it expanded on those emotions or helped you write them?
I feel like for me, the reason that I personally set it in this academic setting is because, like you said, that is such a pivotal time in all of our lives where we are, learning. Like it's the first time we're away from this sort of like, what do you call it? Almost like a enclosed biome of our hometown.
Yeah.
And this is our first time getting out of it. We are, learning new outside experiences, cultures. We're meeting people that we normally don't see in our day-to-day lives when we're in high school, and we are learning and growing so much as a person, and our values are solidifying and our identity is solidifying during that time. And personally, I feel like that is when, I started to have a lot of my own identity growth and learning who I was, but also trying to hide it because, the South. But, I really wanted to set the scene of that one because I love an academia, dark academia, light academia. I don't care. If it's set at a prestigious school or
Mm-hmm.
academy, sign me up, And so that mixed with all of these feelings of the feeling of having to start over in a new place where you can be anyone, like that's pretty much how all of them, it's kind of like a through line for all of their characters because all of them are in a place where they can be anyone, but are being forced to follow this path that was forged for them. And they feel stuck in someone else's shoes that they don't want to be in.
Yeah. Yeah. And on top of that, you have, I mean, the name of the group, Ghostwriters Club, the title Ghostwriters Club. And what I love is like the word ghost means so many things in
Mm-hmm.
this book. It is obviously a murder mystery, but it's also talking about actual ghost writers, like unseen writers in the background. How are you a genius, Cody? How did you choose to
you know
blend all these interpretations of Ghost into one thing?
If I'm being so honest, whenever I first started working on this book, I didn't know what to call it. And all I
Mhm.
knew was that there was a dead girl, and I knew that they were like rogue writers whose identities were hidden. And so I was
Mhm.
like, I'll just call it the Ghost Writers Club for now. I'll think of something cooler later. And then as I was working on the book and I was thinking like, oh, I actually need to give this book a title if I'm going to actually publish it. And at that point, I had been referring to the book as the Ghostwriters Club, as every other name sounded wrong. And I was like, I feel
Yeah.
like this is the title of the book. And so it was one of those things that I accidentally found it. And then as I went through the process of revising the book, that title I came up with took on more meaning throughout the process. And I was like, wait, actually, I think we can just keep it because I really like it. I feel like it fully encapsulates what I'm doing here in the story. So
Mhm.
yeah, it was kind of a happy accident, if you will.
I love it because I feel like there's still, I mean, we know as people who also read, and like I majored in English and creative writing. So I think it's so fun when authors set out to do some things very specifically, but then once it is out, it is like in the reader's hands and we're making conclusions and interpretations. And so, like, to me, I'm over here like, Cody's a genius. I'm like, the use of ghost is just like so profound and deep. And I just think that's such a cool part of writing, though. It's like whether
Mm-hmm.
that is intentional or it happens subconsciously versus consciously, like
Mm-hmm.
the readers really gravitate and like take a piece of the book with them. And what I was doing to prepare for this, I was reading through reviews, so you don't have to. There are people, and I agree, who like have had strong attachments to certain characters, and they're like, I wanted more, I want a companion story, I want a sequel, I want a spin-off focused on this club member. Do you think you'll ever revisit the world of Ghostwriters Club?
Well, funny you should ask because I have actually thought of doing a prequel story that actually follows Logan's parents at the university. And they're
Mm.
involved in some sort of thing where a death occurs on
Oh my
campus,
gosh.
but it is hidden and no one has ever heard of it because they covered it up. And so it was kind of like a fun little idea. It was like if I ever wanted to come back to this story and spend some more time with these
Yeah.
characters. But also, it would involve not only Logan's parents, but it would involve the parents that we see of the other main
Yes.
characters and
Oh,
their
that's
time
so
at
fun.
university and see kind of how they went from this ragtag group of just normal college students trying to make a living by writing to these elected officials, politicians, very horrible,
Mm-hmm.
toxic, not so great people. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, it's almost like their origin story. And you kind of, I've always had the idea of showing because there's one part where I mention the moment where Logan's dad sees his mom for the first time and the moment
Mm-hmm.
like he falls in love with her. I was always
Yes.
like wanted to write that scene to just be all cute and giddy about it and kick my feet. So you never know. I might return to it eventually and give
Okay.
you a little prequel story.
And in terms of like reader reactions, like I feel like I guess what's interesting to me about self pub versus trad pub, and I think it can be a blessing or a curse probably to the writer, is that
Yeah.
you get to be a lot more connected, I feel like, with your audience because you're out here blood, sweat, and tears on the marketing trail and pushing your story and connecting with people so that they are invested in your journey and want to buy your book and read it. Is there any reactions, like reader reactions from friends or other readers that really stood out to you that you're like, oh, I didn't expect people to like think this strongly? Or was there, anything that shocked you about reader reactions?
Honestly, the I'm trying to think. If there's anything that shocked. I mean, honestly, in those first few weeks, I was terrified. Whenever I finally sent it out to ARC readers, I was like, these are going to be the first people. This is going to be my first impression of reviews on
Mm.
Beyonce's internet. Like this is it. These 10 people that I sent this book to will be the first people to tell the internet if it is worth buying and reading or if you should just skip it. And
Mm.
so the response that I got from them was overwhelmingly more positive than I was expecting, which I don't know if that just means I need to have more confidence in myself or whatever. But this is my first
Yes.
outing. The nerves are normal, like if this is your first ever time publishing a book, the whole thing is scary. It's just scary, and it
Mm-hmm.
just is what it is. And but they were way more positive than I was expecting. And I'm not gonna lie, I did cry a few times because I'm just an emotional being. And I did actually print out my very first book review because it was a 5-star review, and I do plan to eventually get it framed, but I don't have a frame yet. But I do have it printed.
That's
It's just
so
sitting
great.
at my office at work. But yeah, it was very overwhelming to see all the positivity and the people excited about it, because, whenever you're posting on the internet, it feels like you're posting into this void with,
Mm-hmm.
no guarantee that anyone will say anything back. And so just to see how many people were sharing posts and excited and leaving reviews, and they were glowing reviews, I was like, oh my gosh, like maybe I can actually do this. And so
Yes.
it was a very cathartic, very emotional experience, but I would not trade all of the blood, sweat, tears, stress, everything. I wouldn't trade any of it for the world, because it was the coolest thing I've ever done, is publish a book. Like, are you kidding me? Like, I was telling Clark the other day, I was like, this year has been the coolest year of my life, truly.
Mm-hmm.
Between getting to meet all of you guys on the retreat,
Mm-hmm.
getting married, publishing a book,
Yeah.
like this year, truly, my entry into the age of 30 has been, if this is any indication of the rest of this decade, then
Yeah.
sign me up,
It's
strap
a
me
great
in,
one.
and I'm ready to go. I'm
Oh,
along for the
Cody, I'm gonna get
ride.
emotional for you. That's so
Don't do that, because
sweet.
if you start crying, I'll cry. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I won't cry. Yeah, that's totally normal and sweet. Okay.
No, we're smiling.
No, we're
We're so
professional and we're
happy. Yeah.
smiling. We're so
Hey,
happy.
professionals cry too. Okay.
That's true. That should be a merch item.
Yeah,
Professionals cry
professionals
too.
cry too.
That's real. And with professional publishing, I'll just move on so I don't cry. What made you choose self-publishing? I feel like it's such an amazing opportunity for writers to like choose this path, but it just feels so incredibly difficult.
Hmm.
So I'd love to just ask you 3 rapid questions in a row and you get to figure out how to answer it. So what
Okay.
made you choose self-publishing, and then what has been like the best and maybe the not so best parts of it?
Okay. So the reason that I chose self-publishing was because I knew that I wanted to be self-published, but as I have been self-publishing, I've come to the realization that I am open to being hybrid. I'm willing to be traditionally and indie published. And I feel like the thing that solidified me self-publishing was I wanted to have all of the back end knowledge of what it takes to produce a book from start to finish, what all goes into the project, what all different avenues and things you need to manage in order to successfully launch a book by a deadline. I wanted to have all of those skills and all of those tools under my belt, so that if or when the day comes when I am, gonna hopefully be traditionally published, or with whoever, I can walk into that room with more knowledge than maybe
Mm,
someone who is entering the publishing world for the very first time. I know about hiring a cover designer. I know about working with developmental editors. I know about, ordering ISBNs and marketing, creating images for marketing materials. I know how to do all of those things and I went through the struggle of teaching myself all of those things, because that knowledge I hope can be used as an
mm,
advantage whenever I one day hopefully enter the traditionally published space. So yeah, that was the main reason why.
yeah.
Best thing that came out of it, my favorite part, honestly, was working with the cover designer, because I actually got to
Oh.
work with Christian Storm. He
Mm-hmm.
was the cover designer for 13 Reasons Why, which was actually really cool. And so, but I didn't know that when I hired him, because I just liked his covers and I was like, love to work with you. But the job of being an art director was so fun.
Yeah.
Being like, having someone send me a piece of art that I kind of like came up with, and then being like, I like where you're going with this, but I'd like to tweak these little things here. And just kind of getting to be that confident voice with the one with the vision, and
Mm-hmm.
getting to find and hire these people that I feel represent my vision, but also can see my vision and appreciate it for what it is without trying to diminish it.
Mm.
And so I got to make all of those decisions. And so I'd probably say the cover design / professional editing, hiring those was my favorite thing, because it just, I don't know, I felt so in charge.
Yeah. No, that's
And then
great.
my least favorite, ISBNs, the end, period. because it took me so long to figure out how to ISBNs work and how to do ISBNs. But we got it.
Yeah.
We got there. We got there.
And that's great. Would you give any advice then, or do you have any advice to give to a newer writer who has also made the decision, like, I want to go down the self-publishing route?
Absolutely. I mean, my biggest advice is that pretty much any paid service or any paid anything that you would need to do for self-publishing, there is a free alternative. It
Mm,
might take longer. It might take more time to really get the book to the same quality, but you can accomplish everything that you need to accomplish without paying any money.
yeah.
And so that is probably my biggest tip. But also, you get to decide, you get to prioritize the things that you do want to spend money on. Because for me, I cannot design a book cover to save my life.
Yeah.
Photoshop, Adobe, we don't know her. And so I knew that my two things that I was not skimping on was a cover designer professional and an editing professional. Those are
Hmm.
my, personally for me, those are my have to haves. Everything else, there's free options that can
Yeah.
get you similar to the same result. So that would be my biggest tip.
I think that's a great tip and like a good reminder for people because it is a lot of money to self-publish, but it shouldn't be a barrier. Like you're saying,
Mm-hmm.
like if you want to do it, there's always going to be a free alternative, which I think is a good reminder for all of us.
Yeah. And we all have different goals. We all have different reasons that we're writing. And so
Hmm.
if you're just looking to write a book just for you, so you can have it in a physical form and you just, you don't need all the bells and whistles that come into marketing a bestseller, then you don't have to worry about all that. You just
Hmm.
do whatever fits your goals, fits your wants, your needs, whatever you want to get out of it is what you put into it. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I know you're working on two other projects at the moment. If anyone is following your journey on YouTube, we have Project Terms and Conditions, we have Project Purple.
Mm-hmm.
You I think it's so amazing because like you worked so hard on Ghostwriters Club and now you've finished a draft of Project Terms and Conditions and you're working towards this new genre of fantasy with Project Purple. How do you feel like you've seen your writing evolve over these different drafts and story ideas?
I think that the place where I've evolved the most is my preparation process. Like I have a much cleaner outline, a much clearer picture, more streamlined outline than I did with the Ghostwriters Club, because obviously the first time
Mm-hmm.
I was coming up with an outline for that book for Ghostwriters Club, that was my first time outlining. So I didn't know at that moment how my brain worked best with like scenes and, chronological order and all of that stuff. Because when I first started Ghostwriters Club, I was trying to jump around to scenes and like write different random scenes because I was
Mm-hmm.
like, "Ooh, this one's not coming to me. Let me try a different scene." But then I learned that I can't do that because I am a fully chronological writer. So learning all of those things with Ghostwriters Club, all of those trials and tests that led to, trial and error that led to many, many failures, taught me how I work best. And so when it came to Project Terms and Conditions, I was literally, with all the preparation that I did, was able to write that book in a full 30 days. Like first draft done
Yeah.
November 1st, November 30th. And that was the first time I had ever done that, ever written a book that many words in 1 month. And so I feel like that alone showed me the speed at which I write because I'm more prepared. I know I don't have to ask any questions
Yeah.
because I had the outline that told me everything I needed to know. And I was able to just start at the beginning, follow the outline, and by the end I had a story. So
Yeah. Do you feel like the story changed at all from your outline? Yeah.
100%,
Okay.
100%.
Okay.
Because the ending with this one was one that, even though I knew what I wanted the ending to be, it changed so much
Mm-hmm.
from the original draft, which it's actually stayed the same since it's been written. But as I was leading up to it, I was like, we're not going to this ending that I wrote in this outline.
Yep.
We're going somewhere else. And so
Mm-hmm.
I let it happen, and it ended up being a much more fun ending, in my opinion. So,
Love
yeah.
that. And then we're heading into fantasy, which I think
Yes.
is so fun. Like, what made you decide to jump into the fantasy genre after writing 2 thrillers?
So, this Project Purple, is actually a story that has lived with me probably since I was 13 years old. It is the first like big book that I ever foresaw
Mm.
myself writing. And over the course of my life, I have, I've edited, changed, fleshed out, completely thrown things away, but it has just evolved so much over time, and it evolved to the point where I was like, okay, I know this is going to be a series. And I knew that I did not want my first publishing venture to be a series, because that would be just so much to think about, so much to follow through, while I was already, the learning curve is already steep enough without having to deal with a series and threading all those things through. And so with that, my 2 favorite genres to read are fantasy and thriller. And so I was like, well, I love thrillers. Why don't I just write a couple thrillers? Because those are standalones. They are one book and done. Like there's no other, you can come back to it and have a standalone that is connected to it. But at the end of the day, they're standalones. And so that's kind of why I started with thriller, because to me, the plan was always to publish thriller and fantasy, because those are my 2 favorite things. Why would I not write in both? But I started my journey of publishing with thrillers because they're standalones, easier to manage, before I am now deciding to take on the task of a at least 3-book series. Could be more.
Oh
We'll see.
gosh, 3 books. Okay, that's really exciting. Did you, now that you have this outlining process, this is a series, did you approach the outlining the exact same way? And did you outline like all 3 books, or did we just do book 1 for right now?
So I have a general idea of what each of the 4 books is going to be, because there are 4 crystal heroes. And so each book is going to be a very large arc with one of the crystal heroes. So it's going to be following the main character the whole time, but there are, I guess I just need to like kind of give a little bit of background to make it make sense. So basically, Project Purple is a world where it's like people that look like you and me, but their magic comes from this earth that's made of like crystals. And it's crystals how we would imagine them today, like, garnet and amber and sapphire, rubies, emeralds. Like that is the magic that powers this land, is through crystals. So in my mind, it's a mashup of The Witch's Road from Agatha All Along, The Hunger Games, and Steven Universe.
Oh my gosh, what
So
comps?
yeah, that's kind of like the vibes. So it's epic fantasy following these main characters who live on the islands of Fracture. And because they're islands, they're technically no longer connected to the heart of the mainland. And so the people who live in Fracture are magicless, and their crystals on their arm, instead of presenting a specific color for the magic that they possess, they're just clear. So they're called the Clear Bloods on Fracture. And then anyone who does have magic, they take on the surname of the goddess connected to that magic. So, for example, if you were a purple blood, you would be Michaela Genedea.
Love.
Because Genedea
Changing
is
my name right now.
the purple goddess. And so basically that is the vibe. So there's 5 main colors that the crystal can be. And so in my mind, I'm imagining the series being a color crystal, because of that something's going to happen with that main character. It's going to be a very big part of their story.
Okay. I love that. So this is also another like big ensemble cast, it sounds like. Seems like you're kind of going back to a bigger cast, because Project Terms and Conditions feels like a smaller cast.
Yeah, it's pretty much dual POV. It is, Project Terms and Conditions is dual POV.
Yeah.
And then we just have our other kind of, they're almost like, what's between a main character and a side character? They're like a supporting character?
Supporting cast.
But so yeah, it's like 4 or 5. 3 side characters, 2 main characters. Yeah. But I almost wanted it to feel that way, because this is my first time doing an enclosed thriller where they're like trapped in an enclosed space. Like most of the story takes place inside of one house, and there's this countdown to a storm. And so I wanted the cast to be small to almost, to almost draw attention to the fact that it is an enclosed thriller, because it's just the 2 of us. We're the only 2 here. We can't solve this. We can't figure it out. SOL.
We love a closed door thriller. Yes. But that's great. And I love that all these projects are so different, but it seems like you said, they pull from different parts of you or your life, and Project Purple has been something that's been with you for so long. How do you resurrect a story? that's been with you for years and now make it into something book shaped.
You never delete the document from your desktop.
Heck yeah.
Because anytime I would feel inspiration or I would feel that story calling to me to work on it some more, I would just open that document, I would put the date, and I would just say whatever thoughts I'm having, type them all down, click save, close it until the next time that happened. And so I ended up almost with like a diary of like ideas. And so whenever I got to go back and start doing the outlining process, I got to reference a lot of these nuggets and like weave them in through the story of the first book so far. And yeah, it's really exciting to see how much the story's developed since I came up with it originally. I mean, just it has grown into such a more layered story than what it once was. And I'm really excited to kind of dive in head first and just see what magic comes out of it, you know? So I'm really excited about it.
I feel like I can relate because my story is also something that I've like been with for so long. And I feel like it's just a different process than like,
Mm-hmm.
a new idea right at that age. And you're like, okay, it's like all here, but something from your past, you really are resurrecting and then like making it
Mm-hmm.
fit who you are now and how you see the world now and what you're trying to say. So I think that's a really cool process.
Yeah. And we say it all the time. We're like, sometimes we have ideas that we don't feel like we're ready to write just yet, but it's still there. And we had the idea. So I feel like when I first came up with this idea, I knew at the time that I needed to have some experience under my belt before even attempting. And I was not going to let myself start on this because I wanted to make sure that I gave it the due diligence that it deserved for being, for holding on to it for so long. I want to give it its due diligence. And after holding on to it for so long, I feel now that I have published a book, I've, got a second one in revision. I feel like where I'm at now, I'm ready to tell this story the way I want it to be told. And I'm really excited about it because obviously back then I would not have included queer characters in my stories, but now I get to add that layer of me. And this almost feels like what the story was all along. It's what I wanted it to be, what little Cody wanted it to be, growing up, but couldn't let it fully develop. And maybe that's what was missing. Was it was missing the true part of me that I wanted to put into it. And so it's all very exciting, and I'm just excited to see what comes up with it. And it's gonna break your heart. So just get ready. Yeah, it's already breaking my heart. I've already cried one time while I was doing the outline because one thing about me, sometimes I'll put dialogue in my outline, girl.
Oh, yeah. I feel like you need dialogue in your outline.
Yeah, but yeah, the end of the first book is just gonna my readers are gonna hate me, but it's okay.
I can't
It's
wait.
fine.
Okay, so we have Ghostwriters Club. We have Project Terms
Mm-hmm.
and Conditions and Revisions.
Mm-hmm.
We're working on Project Purple. You are creating your, I don't even know what the word is, your body of work, really. And now it seems like you're jumping more into this marketing hat.
Mm-hmm.
Cody, I'd love for
Yes.
you to talk about the experience and maybe the hardship of marketing your book and diving into TikTok and all that comes with that.
Yeah. So for me, like I was saying, when I first started my YouTube channel, it was mostly for accountability. But there was a part of me that knew that eventually I was going to have a finished book that I needed to market. And so I was like, why not go ahead and invite people in now to follow the journey, to get to see all of the struggles, the highs, the lows that, you encounter when through publishing a book, and kind of just inviting them in to be a part of the experience. That way, whenever the book was finally published and came out, there were many that were like some of the book reviews that I'm sure you saw were like, oh my gosh, I follow Cody. I watched him write this book. It's so cool to finally hold it in my hands. It's like that, they're gushing about the book that they got to almost write with me. And so it's really cool to experience that. And that was sort of my way of dipping my toe into the getting my face out there, being on the internet chronically. And so that was my way of dipping my toe in of what was working. I learned thumbnails. I learned what people clicked on, what they don't click on, all the things about the algorithm. God, the algorithm.
We hate her.
But yeah, and so with this TikTok, I was like, that's short form content, not really what I do. I mostly do long form content. But I think I can make this work if I, kind of do like a batch bulk, filming kind of style of content. So what I'm trying right now is I'm trying to post 30 TikToks in 30 days to see if it has any effect positively or negatively on sales, on, follows, likes, whatevers, and just as an experiment to see if it is even worth my time to invest in it. But I mean, I'm not going to lie, so far it's looking like a pretty good investment in time, because I mean, I've already been gaining a lot of followers and I'm only on day 3.
I do have some rapid fire questions then that I have had so much fun asking everybody as we wind down. What is a piece of art? So that could be whatever art means to you, a painting, a movie, a TV show, a song that has had a profound impact on you.
Honestly, probably Scream.
Love it. I was about to say, we need to talk about your shirt for a minute.
I know. I was like, honestly, because I feel like it was movies like this that made me fall in love with the genre of like slasher and thriller and horror.
Yeah.
And it really shaped a lot of my early experiences, because I mean, Scream was all the rage in the 90s whenever, we were making our entrance into the world. Because we're old, but it's fine.
Because we're old.
But I loved that like meta sort of style that Scream is, and how the whole entire franchise is the creator's love letter to fans of the genre, and how he literally created this series with all of these references and included all these actors from these, famous horror franchises, and put them in his movie as a nod and as a bit of a, what do you call it, as a thank you to all of the creators that came before him. And so in a way, I want to do the same thing with my work. I want to write something that is not only a love letter to the people who wrote this genre before me, but it is a love letter to the Cody that lived before today, and all of the experiences and the things that he went through, and paying homage to that while also paying homage to the genre itself and those who paved the way for me to be able to write a queer fantasy story and publish it without fear, So
yeah, that's great. And I really love Scream.
Yeah,
I don't always love
answer.
No, I love it. I don't always love a horror movie. I'm very particular, but Scream, I just vividly remember watching Scream for the first time and I was like, this is actually
it's so
like
good.
A genius piece of art. Yes. No, I love Scream.
Favorite. I mean, and also if you're interested, I have a video on my channel where I broke down Scream with Save the Cat.
And it's so good. It's so good. Everyone go watch that. It's so good.
Obsessed. It's so good.
Yes. Okay, which character from your own work, any work, would you grab a drink with?
Asher. Because he's hot.
Period. And we love that for you. What is something totally unrelated to writing that you're obsessed with right now?
There is a Nintendo Direct tomorrow for the new Pokemon games that are coming out, and I'm a big Pokemon nerd. So tomorrow at 8 a.m. Central Time, there's a new Pokemon Nintendo Direct, and I've been sitting on my hands like, give it to
waiting
me now. Because the new game comes out in October, and so I'm like, give me what I want to know.
Yes.
So that is my answer.
Love it. As a reality TV show lover and myself and you, what reality show would you totally crush, Cody?
Vanderpump Rules.
Yeah, you would. Yeah, you would.
Crush it. I love Vanderpump Rules. I love drama. And also, I'm really good at serving.
Yes.
Tea.
Honestly, you'd kill it at a Bravo reunion.
I really would. Can I be the new Andy Cohen when a new Supreme falls, or when a new Supreme rises and another one falls? Yes. Can I be the new Supreme, the new Andy Cohen?
You should. I'll go to bat for you to be the new Andy Cohen. That's amazing. And then if you came with a warning label, what would it say?
How much time do you have? If I came with a warning label.
It's a long terms and conditions.
Warning, chronic oversharer.
Yeah.
Because I will tell the most traumatic thing that ever happened to me to just about anybody. Be like, girl.
But I love that about you.
Yeah. Like, okay. If someone initiates a conversation with me, then I will just yap away. But I am never one to initiate conversation with a stranger, because I just assume that they don't want to be talked to. If they're not talking, they don't want to be talked to, Because that's me. If I'm not talking, I don't want to be talked to. So, but I feel like, definitely caution will tell you about the one time he was 12 and broke his ankle.
See, but I love that. Like, I just feel like I can relate. I'm also a chronic oversharer. Like, if you get me yapping, I'm like, okay, let's go. It's just so much better to talk about our traumas than the weather. Like, come on. on.
Yeah. I guess my second one would be often responds in brain rot.
Yeah.
Like Clark will ask me a
Okay.
question and I'll be like, her sister was a witch. And he just knows that means no.
And I got to experience that in real time, living
You
with you for a
did.
weekend.
Frequently uses brain rot and also sometimes
And it's
sings.
great.
Sing speaks. Because why?
Mm-hmm.
It's fun.
I always sing speak.
Yes.
It's way more
so
fun.
freeing. It is. Embrace the cringe and just sing speak.
Yes. We are embrace the cringe and sing speak, everyone. That is the best advice from Cody Wayne Morris.
That's the title of this video.
That is.
I mean, period.
Everyone will be like, what?
Okay. And they're like, are they going to talk about writing?
Yeah, strange. And to close this out, where can listeners connect with you and find your work?
I am Cody the Writer everywhere that you can find me. I am on Substack, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and I think that's it. And then you can follow my author page on Amazon or Goodreads. Cody Wayne Morris is my author name. But yeah, I'm Cody the Writer everywhere else.
Thank you so much, Cody, for chatting. It's always fun to interview a friend. And yes. I hope if you haven't read Ghostwriters Club, you go ahead and do so.
Yes, thank you so much for having me, Michaela. This was so much fun.
Yeah. Thanks for listening to my conversation with Cody Wayne Morris. His mystery thriller debut, The Ghostwriters Club, is out now and is being sold wherever you find books. Go support him by buying a copy or reading the book and following him at Cody the Writer on socials. As always, if you enjoyed this episode, share it with your writer friends or friends who read and want to pull back the curtain a little bit more on an author's journey. If you're listening to us on Apple or Spotify, you can go ahead and follow so you never miss an episode, as well as leaving a review, which always helps us. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll talk to you next time.